Listen closely, my friend. You are not awake right now because you have physical energy. You are awake because your mind is currently running a trial for a crime reality never committed. Every night, the exact same ritual unfolds. The lights go out, the world falls silent, and you lie down, desperately begging your body for rest. But the moment your head hits the pillow, the courtroom doors swing wide open. Every mistake you made 5 years ago is brought back to the witness stand for another hearing. Every awkward silence from a conversation this afternoon is dissected as a hidden rejection. Every uncertain tomorrow is painted as a guaranteed catastrophe before it even has the biological right to exist. You tell yourself this is normal. You call it preparation. You call it being responsible, careful, analytical. But let me ask you a question that might completely shatter the illusion you've built your life upon. How many psychological wars have you fought in your head that reality never actually declared? Think about it deeply. How many ruined futures have you already survived in your imagination that never happened in the physical world? How many arguments have you rehearsed 100 times in the shower, feeling your heart race and your chest tighten, only to find that the actual conversation looked absolutely nothing like the horror script you wrote? How many beautiful evenings, how many peaceful mornings, how many genuine human connections have been quietly stolen from you by a thief that doesn't even exist outside your own skull? The most brutal prison on this planet was never built with concrete walls, barbed wire, or armed guards. It was built from invisible, whispered thoughts. Thoughts that consistently murmur, what if you aren't enough? What if they discover you're a fraud? What if everything you've built falls apart tomorrow morning? And the absolute tragedy of human nature is this: without ever making a conscious choice, you started believing those whispers were the absolute truth. You became the prisoner, the judge, and the executioner, all while lying perfectly still in a comfortable bed. More than 2,000 years ago, two men walked this earth during the exact same era. Their daily realities were so vastly different that they could have belonged to different planets. The first man was born into physical devastation. He was a slave, sold as property, beaten until his bones cracked, and forced to spend his youth in literal iron chains. He owned nothing, not even his own clothes. The second man held the ultimate position of human power. He was the emperor of Rome, ruling over the entire Mediterranean world. A single wave of his hand could eliminate armies or build empires. He slept in a palace of marble, surrounded by gold, protected by thousands of elite soldiers. If you were to ask a modern psychologist which of these two men was drowning in anxiety, and which one possessed absolute, unshakable inner peace, the answer would seem obvious. We assume the palace brings peace, and the chains bring misery. But history records a chillingly different reality. The emperor, Marcus Aurelius, spent his nights in his palace trembling with stress, fighting off deep depression, surrounded by corrupt politicians, betrayal, and the constant threat of plague. He realized that all the gold in Rome could not quiet a restless, terrified mind. Meanwhile, the slave, Epictetus, discovered a mental loophole so powerful that even though his body was owned by another man, his mind was completely, utterly free. He walked with a limp from being beaten, yet his spirit was so unshakable that the most powerful scholars of Rome traveled across oceans just to sit at his feet and learn how to breathe. How is this possible? Because both of these men, the slave in chains and the king on the throne, stumbled upon the exact same hidden law of the human psyche, your suffering is almost never caused by what happens to you. It is caused by the story your mind invents about what happened to you. The slave realized that no iron chain could imprison a mind that possessed self-discipline. The emperor realized that no golden crown could bring tranquility to a mind that lacked it. Their lives became a living manifesto of a philosophy that didn't just survive the collapse of the Roman Empire, it survived the rise and fall of civilizations, global wars, plagues, and centuries of human evolution. Stoicism. It has survived because truth never becomes outdated. The human brain today reacts to a modern email or a missing text message with the exact same primal panic that an ancient Roman felt when facing a barbarian spear. The triggers change, but the internal chaos remains identical. Over the next stretch of time, you are not going to hear motivational slogans or toxic positivity. You are about to be handed 7 timeless psychological weapons. These are heavy shifts in perspective that have helped ordinary people, warriors, leaders, and survivors remain completely unshaken when the entire world around them was burning to the ground. If you choose to not just hear these words, but to actively absorb them into your identity, you will never look at your fears the same way again. For the first time in a very long time, the space between your ears might actually become the safest, most peaceful place you have ever lived. Let us look at the first truth, because everything you know about reality is about to shift. Truth 1. You control your input, never the outcome there, is a fatal error that almost every human being commits from the moment they wake up until the moment they close their eyes. We spend nearly 90% of our emotional energy trying to micromanage variables that were never placed in our hands. Think about how you navigate a standard day. You send a critical email, and instead of moving on, you refresh your inbox every 2 minutes, waiting for a specific reply. You post something online, and your mood dictates itself based on the number of notifications that flash across your screen. You invest your heart into a relationship, and you silently demand that the other person text you back within a certain time frame to validate your worth. Without ever making a conscious agreement, your peace of mind has become completely leased out to variables outside your skull. The moment your happiness depends on an outcome, you cannot single-handedly guarantee. You are no longer the master of your life. You are a hostage to circumstances. This is the hidden reason why so many people feel utterly drained, even on days when nothing technically tragic occurred. They aren't exhausted from physical labor. They are exhausted from the impossible burden of trying to control reality. Every delayed response feels like a personal insult. Every sudden change in plans feels like an act of war. Every unanswered question becomes a text message from fate telling them they aren't safe. More than 2,000 years ago, Epictetus laid down a psychological boundary line that separates absolute freedom from total misery. He taught that life is strictly divided into 2 categories: the things that are completely up to us, and the things that are not. Up to us are our own opinions, our desires, our boundaries, and our responses. Not up to us is everything else: the behavior of other people, the timing of success, the weather, the past, and the ultimate outcome of our hard work. Anxiety is born the exact millisecond you confuse these 2 columns. The moment you try to command what belongs to the world, you automatically surrender the only thing that ever truly belonged to you, your own inner stillness. To understand this deeply, picture yourself standing in an open field holding a massive, heavy rope. The other end of this rope is tied directly to a raging mountain storm. You plant your feet into the mud. You pull with everything you have. Your muscles ache, your hands blister, your blood pumps, and your teeth grind. You pour every ounce of your life force into moving that storm. Yet, the lightning flashes exactly where it wants to, and the rain falls completely indifferent to your pain. The storm isn't fighting you. It doesn't even know you are there. The only thing changing, the only thing actively breaking down, is you. Your desperation doesn't affect the cloud. It only destroys your body. Now imagine doing something that feels terrifying to the modern mind. Imagine relaxing your fingers and simply letting go of the rope. The storm doesn't instantly vanish. The rain keeps pouring, the wind keeps blowing, and the uncertainty of the weather remains exactly as it was before. But notice the immediate shift inside your own skin. Suddenly, your shoulders drop. Your breath returns. Your energy is no longer being incinerated by a battle that was mathematically impossible to win. For the first time all day, your hands are empty and free to focus entirely on what actually sits within your boundary line, your very next step. Your personal choices, your integrity, your true power was never in commanding the weather. Your power was always in deciding who you would choose to become while standing beneath the rain. Marcus Aurelius understood this balancing act better than anyone who has ever worn a crown. He was the absolute ruler of an empire, yet he could not command fate. He could direct vast armies, but he could not stop the deadly plague that wiped out millions of his citizens. He could write laws, but he could not control the secret betrayals of his closest political allies. Instead of driving himself into madness by demanding that the world become cooperative, he redirected every drop of his focus inward. He mastered the only territory that would ever truly obey him, his own character. History does not remember him simply because of the land he conquered, but because of the mind he refused to surrender. Look closely at the anxiety keeping you awake this week. Was it actually born from a physical threat standing in your living room? Or were you desperately pulling the rope, trying to force a specific outcome that hasn't arrived yet? The moment you stop demanding certainty from a world that cannot provide it, the world instantly loses its ability to terrify you. Truth 2. Most of your suffering exists only in your imagination. There is an evolutionary quirk in human psychology that acts as an open invitation for anxiety. Your mind possesses the ability to take a fragile, distant possibility and slowly, quietly engineer it into an absolute certainty. A simple delay in a text message is warped into evidence that a friendship is over. A constructive note from your manager is translated into a sign that you are about to be fired. An unexpected financial expense is stretched out until it looks like total ruin. In reality, nothing around you has shifted. The room is quiet, the air is clean, and you are entirely safe. Yet, your biology doesn't realize the difference between a real event and a thought. Your chest tightens, your heart pounds against your ribs, cortisol floods your bloodstream, and sleep completely evaporates. You are experiencing genuine, visceral, agonizing pain for an event that does not exist anywhere on the planet Earth except inside your own skull. You fight entire wars, endure deep heartbreaks, and survive devastating bankruptcies, all before the morning sun even rises, only to realize that the physical world hasn't moved an inch. You have exhausted your spirit fighting monsters made entirely of mist. Seneca captured this universal human glitch in a simple sentence that has outlived empires. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The human brain is a magnificent survival machine designed to predict danger, but it is notorious for being terrible at predicting absolute truth. It prioritizes fear over facts because, in the wild thousands of years ago, mistaking a harmless shadow for a predator kept you alive. But in modern society, this mechanism runs completely out of control. Imagine you are walking down an isolated trail just as the sun drops below the horizon. Through the dim light, you spot a dark, jagged form standing perfectly still between the trees. Your instincts scream at you, your muscles lock up, your throat goes dry, and your mind races through every worst-case scenario. You prepare yourself for a violent encounter. You take one tense step forward, squinting through the darkness, only to discover that it was never a threat at all. It was just the silhouette of an old, broken tree trunk. The panic you felt was completely authentic. Your body paid the full physical price of an attack, even though the danger was mathematically zero. Your thoughts pull this exact illusion on you every single hour. They present a mental shadow and swear to you that it is a real monster. They whisper catastrophic endings to stories that haven't even finished their first chapter. And because fear always speaks with a voice of absolute confidence, you mistake its panic for wisdom. You start planning your life around illusions, reacting to the ghost stories your mind invents rather than the floor beneath your feet. Look back at the absolute catastrophes that occupied your thoughts 12 months ago. Remember the sheer panic that made your stomach drop and kept you staring at the ceiling until 4 in the morning. At that exact time, those problems felt like the absolute end of your narrative. They felt permanent, heavy, and destructive. Yet today, many of those issues have dissolved so completely that you would struggle to even list them from memory. The catastrophic future you paid for with your tears never actually arrived at your door. The future was kind, but the imagination was brutal. This is why Marcus Aurelius practiced a strict internal filter. Whenever his thoughts tried to race ahead into the unknown territory of next month or next year, he dragged himself back to the immediate second. He understood that the human mind becomes a highly dangerous weapon against itself the moment it abandons the concrete facts of the present to gamble on the infinite possibilities of the future. The next time your mind starts drafting a script for a tragedy that hasn't happened, you must break the spell immediately. Force your consciousness to stop and ask one specific anchor question. What do I actually know to be true for a fact right now? Not what do you suspect. Not what are you afraid of. Not what could happen if everything goes wrong. What are the undeniable physical facts available to you in this exact room, in this exact breath? This question acts as a psychological emergency brake. It tears the mask off the imagination, dissolves the shadows back into simple trees, and returns your attention to the only space where anxiety cannot survive, the current moment. Truth 3. Acceptance is not surrender. It is the blueprint of freedom. There is a silent, exhausting war that millions of people fight every single day from the moment they open their eyes until they fall into a fitful sleep. It is not a war against an external enemy, nor is it a battle against poverty or physical failure. It is something far more destructive, a war against reality itself. Think of how much mental energy is consumed by the phrases we repeat like a mantra inside our heads. It shouldn't have happened this way. Why did they have to say that to me? If only I had made a different choice 5 years ago, my life would be perfect right now. Without realizing it, we turn our minds into time machines, constantly traveling back to the past to argue with events that have already solidified into history. We demand an apology from life that it is never going to issue. We replay old conversations, desperately hoping that if we review the tape one more time, the ending will somehow miraculously change. But reality is completely indifferent to our anger. The rain does not stop falling because you hate the mud. The clock does not tick backward because your heart is heavy with regret. Life does not halt its forward march just because you refuse to give your approval to what occurred yesterday. The fatal mistake most people make is that they confuse acceptance with surrender or weakness. They genuinely believe that to accept a painful reality, like a broken relationship, a sudden career loss, or a deep personal betrayal, means they are admitting defeat. They think that by refusing to accept it, by staying angry and resentful, they are somehow keeping the fight alive. They view their internal misery as a form of protest against injustice. But this is an emotional, optical illusion. Your lack of acceptance does not punish the person who hurt you, nor does it alter the event. It only builds a fire inside your own house using your own peace of mind as the fuel. Resistance isn't strength, it is emotional suicide. It keeps you chained to a corpse, forcing you to live the worst moments of your life over and over again. To see this clearly, imagine yourself dropped into the middle of a massive, violently rushing river. The current is incredibly powerful, moving downstream with immense force. Your natural instinct is to panic. You turn your body against the water and begin pushing against the current with every ounce of physical strength you possess. You splash, you scream, your muscles burn, and your lungs gasp for air. You exhaust your entire body just trying to stand still in the water. But the river doesn't care about your effort. It doesn't slow down because you are tired. It keeps moving, completely deaf to your frustration. You aren't changing the river, you are just drowning yourself. Now imagine a radical shift in strategy. Imagine turning your body around and aligning yourself with the flow of the water. The river hasn't suddenly disappeared. The current is just as fast and dangerous as it was a moment ago. But notice what happens to your energy. The second you stop fighting the inevitable force of the water, your head pops above the surface. You can finally breathe. Your energy is no longer being wasted on a useless argument with physics. For the first time, your mind is clear enough to observe the riverbanks, spot the rocks ahead, and actively navigate your way to safety. You didn't give up, you simply acknowledged the reality of the current so that you could actually do something about it. Marcus Aurelius wrote his most profound thoughts while sitting in a military tent on the edge of a bloody battlefield, surrounded by a devastating plague that was tearing through his empire, while dealing with the betrayal of his most trusted general. He did not write about how beautiful or easy life was. He wrote about the absolute necessity of accepting whatever fate threw at him. He understood that suffering is always a two-part equation. The first part is the event itself, the loss, the pain, the unexpected crisis. The second part is the endless, agonizing argument inside your own head, insisting that the event should never have happened. The first part is written by life, and it lasts only a moment. The second part is written entirely by you, and it can last for decades. Acceptance is the tool that deletes the second part of the equation. It is the brave decision to lay down your weapons against the past, face the facts without making excuses, and ask the only question that holds any real power. This is the reality. What do I do now? Truth 4. Your attention is the most valuable currency you own. We live in an age where people are obsessed with protecting their tangible assets. You lock the front door of your house to keep strangers out. You set complex passwords on your bank accounts to secure your money. You carefully guard your time, making sure you don't waste hours on things you dislike. Yet, the absolute most valuable resource you possess is given away every single hour to anyone and anything that asks for it. That resource is your attention. Wherever your attention goes, your emotional reality is built. If someone or something can successfully hijack your focus, they have successfully hijacked your life. Think about how a typical modern morning unfolds. You wake up with a clean slate. The mind is relatively quiet. But before your feet even touch the floor, you pick up your phone. Within 3 minutes of scrolling, you read a frustrating headline, see a passive-aggressive comment from a stranger online, or get an email from a difficult colleague. Instantly, your mood shifts. Cortisol spikes in your chest. Your jaw tightens. For the next 4 hours, your mind is trapped in an imaginary argument with someone you don't even respect. You walk through your day, completely blind to the sunshine, deaf to the people who love you, and entirely detached from the work in front of you. Your attention was stolen without a fight. You didn't choose your thoughts today, you let the algorithms and the noise choose them for you. You became a purely reactive machine, bouncing from one external stimulus to the next like a leaf caught in a windstorm. To understand the immense power of this resource, consider the physics of a magnifying glass. If you take a magnifying glass and hold it loosely under the sun while constantly moving it around, the scattered sunlight warms nothing. It is completely harmless. But if you hold that glass perfectly still and focus those scattered rays into one singular, microscopic point, that exact same sunlight becomes powerful enough to burn through solid wood or melt plastic. The human mind operates on the exact same principle. A mind that allows its attention to be fractured into 100 different directions: social media notifications, past regrets, future anxieties, other people's dramas, becomes weak, fragile, and chronically anxious. But a mind that has trained itself to gather its attention and focus it completely on a single point becomes an absolute powerhouse, completely impossible to shake. Marcus Aurelius practiced a psychological rule that was considered radical in the ancient world and remains even more revolutionary today. He reminded himself, "You always have the option of having no opinion." Think deeply about that statement. Just because you see something does not mean you are required to form an emotional judgment about it. Just because an insult is hurled at you does not mean you have to open the gates of your heart and let it sit inside you. Just because the world is panicking over a headline does not mean you are obligated to invite that panic into your living room. The ultimate form of freedom is not winning every single battle the world invites you into. It is realizing that 99% of those battles are completely unworthy of your currency. They do not deserve your focus. Look honestly at the contents of your thoughts over the past 48 hours. How much of your valuable attention was spent renting out free space to mistakes you cannot undo? How much was spent trying to decode the hidden meanings behind someone's tone of voice? How much was sacrificed to a future that hasn't even arrived? While your mind was busy living in every other corner of the universe, the only place where your actual life was taking place, the present moment, slipped away completely unnoticed. The next time you feel your mind being dragged away by anxiety, you must act as a strict gatekeeper. Pause before you follow the thought and ask yourself this single question: does this matter enough to deserve my attention, or is it just demanding it because it's loud? The world will always compete for your focus through noise and outrage. Wisdom is the act of deciding what gets to pass through the gates of your mind and what must be left outside to starve in the silence. Truth 5. Everything you fear is temporary, including you. The human brain possesses a strange and deceptive habit. It loves to build a home inside temporary pain. When you are going through a devastating heartbreak, your mind whispers that you will feel this exact emptiness until your very last breath. When you experience a massive financial or career failure, your thoughts convince you that you have been permanently branded as a loser and that life will never offer you another clean slate. When anxiety strikes in the middle of the night, it feels like a heavy, suffocating blanket that will never be lifted. But this is the ultimate illusion of perspective. Your mind consistently mistakes a passing storm for a permanent climate. Look back at the version of yourself that existed 5 years ago. Try to remember the exact problems that were destroying your sleep back then. Recall the absolute panic that made your stomach drop, the toxic relationships you swore you could never survive without, and the crises that felt like the absolute final chapter of your life. Where are those catastrophes right now? For the vast majority of them, they have dissolved so completely that you would struggle to even describe them accurately from memory. The catastrophic future that you paid for with your tears, your health, and your youth never actually arrived at your door. The world kept spinning, the seasons kept changing, and you kept evolving. The storm felt infinite while you were standing in the center of it. But the law of the universe is absolute. Every single storm eventually runs out of rain. The ancient Stoics mastered a psychological practice that the modern world tries desperately to hide or ignore. Memento mori, the constant, deliberate remembrance of our own mortality. Today, people think that meditating on death is depressing, dark, or morbid. But for the Stoics, it was the ultimate tool for extreme mental clarity and unshakable confidence. They didn't remind themselves of death to make life feel meaningless. They did it to strip away the false importance of their petty anxieties. Every single sunrise you witness is one sunrise fewer than you will ever see again. Every conversation with a loved one could be the final sentence you exchange. Every ordinary morning is a limited edition miracle that will never be repeated in the history of time. When you truly internalize the fact that everything on this planet is on a countdown timer, your perspective shifts instantly. If you knew with absolute mathematical certainty that you only had 1 year left to live on this earth, would you really spend tonight pacing around your room, losing sleep over a passive-aggressive comment made by a colleague? Would you waste your valuable emotional energy worrying about the judgment of people who don't even care about your happiness? Would you keep postponing your peace of mind until your bank account, your career, or your life became absolutely perfect? Of course you wouldn't. You would realize that perfection was never the goal presence was. To understand this deeply, picture yourself holding a large handful of dry, fine sand. Your natural instinct, driven by fear, is to hold on to it as tightly as you possibly can. You clench your fist, squeezing with intense pressure to keep the sand perfectly still and safe inside your palm. But notice what happens. The harder you squeeze, the faster the grains of sand force their way through the cracks of your fingers, spilling out onto the floor until your hand is completely empty. You exhausted your muscles just to lose what you were trying to protect. Now, imagine doing the exact opposite. Imagine simply opening your hand and letting your palm flatten out. The sand is still moving slightly with the wind. Time is still passing. The world is still changing. Nothing about the physical properties of the sand has altered, but notice the profound shift in your internal state. You are no longer tearing yourself apart trying to stop a force that was never meant to stand still. Life is that handful of sand. The more desperately you claw at certainty, the faster your tranquility escapes you. True power belongs to the mind that realizes that since everything is passing through, the only logical step is to stop gripping, stop panicking, and anchor yourself in the absolute reality of this very second. Truth 6. Peace is never found. It is built from within. There is a tragic chase that defines the lives of nearly 95% of the modern population. People spend their entire existence treating peace of mind as if it were a physical destination waiting for them somewhere in the unknown future. They whisper a silent, conditional contract to themselves. Once I finally buy that house, once I clear this debt, once I get into the perfect relationship, once people finally understand my worth, then, and only then, will I allow myself to sit down and be at peace. But the years roll by, the goals are achieved, the victories fade into ordinary days, and that feeling of deep contentment remains exactly where it has always been, just out of reach, hiding behind the next milestone. The cruelest part of this mental trap is that the moment you actually reach the peak of the mountain you thought would make you happy, your undisciplined mind quietly invents a new requirement. It builds a higher mountain. It demands a larger bank account, a better title, or more validation. The finish line is consistently pushed back. You keep running faster and faster, completely blind to the fact that the race you are running was engineered from the very beginning to have absolutely no end. You are chasing a mirage in a desert, wondering why the water disappears every time your feet get close. Look closely at the reality of the world around you. We see individuals who possess everything the modern world defines as success, unimaginable wealth, global fame, ultimate power, and physical perfection. Yet behind the closed doors of their multi-million-dollar mansions, their lives are frequently drowning in severe anxiety, clinical depression, crippling loneliness, and self-destructive addictions. If peace of mind was something that could be achieved through external circumstances, the elite of this world would never shed a tear. If happiness came from smooth paths, the successful would be invincible. But psychology tells a completely different story. The quality of your life is never determined by the physical coordinates of your body or the assets in your name. It is determined entirely by the internal condition of the mind that experiences those things. A restless, chaotic, and untrained mind will turn an absolute paradise into a living prison. A disciplined, quiet, and masterfully controlled mind can walk straight through a chaotic storm without losing its internal alignment. To see this psychological truth clearly, imagine that you are forced to carry a heavy glass filled with thick, turbulent, muddy water everywhere you go. No matter where you travel, whether you are sitting in a stressful office or standing on a breathtaking, serene tropical beach, every single time you look down at the glass in your hands, the water is cloudy, dark, and toxic. Most people spend their entire lives frantically changing their landscape. They switch jobs, they move to new cities, they end relationships, and they reinvent their outer identities, all in the hope that the water will somehow clear up. But they don't realize that the problem was never the scenery. The problem was that they brought the unsettled glass with them. The secret to cleaning the glass is something so simple it terrifies the chaotic mind. You do absolutely nothing. You do not shake it, you do not filter it, you do not fight the dirt. You simply set the glass down on a flat surface and you leave it alone. If you give muddy water enough time and stillness, the heavy particles of dirt naturally settle to the absolute bottom on their own accord, leaving the water crystal clear, pure, and transparent. Your mind operates in the exact same way. Peace is not something you go out into the world to capture or buy. Peace is simply what remains inside you when you finally stop shaking the glass. It is what happens when you stop allowing external chaos to dictate your internal state. This is the core foundation of what we teach here at Silent Power Psychology. True power is never loud. It isn't found in reacting, screaming, or fighting the world. True power is the absolute stillness of a mind that knows how to govern itself when everything outside is falling apart. It is the understanding that you do not need the world to become quiet for you to be calm. You just need to realize that the fortress of peace has always been located right inside your own consciousness. Truth 7. The version of yourself you are fighting no longer exists. There comes a moment of profound awakening in every human life, when you realize a chilling truth. Your greatest enemy was never the person who broke your heart. It was never the manager who unfairly valued your work. And it was never the cruel hand of bad luck. Your absolute greatest enemy is the phantom version of yourself that you stubbornly refuse to let go of. Look closely at the architecture of the thoughts that keep you emotionally paralyzed. They almost always begin with the exact same invisible chains. I should have known better. If only I hadn't made that devastating mistake 3 years ago. Why did I allow myself to be treated that way? Without realizing the psychological damage you are causing, you turn your mind into a laboratory of regret. Every single time you replay an old failure, every time you beat yourself up for a decision made by a younger, less experienced version of you, you are actively performing medical resuscitation on a ghost. You are taking your fresh, living, breathing energy from this exact second and using it to feed a memory that cannot breathe on its own. the past has absolutely zero power to inflict pain upon you today, until your own mind decides to volunteer as its host. The tragic reality of human nature is that the mind would far rather suffer inside the familiar walls of an old, painful story than face the infinite, terrifying uncertainty of becoming someone completely new. This is why people consistently introduce themselves through the lens of their historical trauma. They build their entire personality around labels. I am someone who was betrayed. I am a failure. I am someone who was abandoned. After repeating these scripts for months and years, those old occurrences stop feeling like temporary events you went through and start feeling like permanent facts of your biology. The pain stops being an experience and becomes your name. You become the guard who locks your own cell from the inside, holding the key in your pocket while crying out for freedom. To understand the absolute insanity of this behavior, imagine yourself walking forward through a beautiful, open green forest. But instead of walking freely, you are dragging a massive, industrial iron chain behind your back. The links are thick, rusty, and incredibly heavy. With every single step you take, the chain digs into your skin. Your spine aches, your legs tremble, and your progress is painfully slow. You become so utterly accustomed to the agony of the weight that you completely forget what it feels like to walk with an upright posture. You drag this suffering through miles of life, complaining to anyone who will listen about how unfair it is that you are burdened with this anchor. Then, one day, a stranger stops you on the path. They point directly to the heavy iron chain trailing behind you and ask a simple, piercing question. Who put that chain on you? And why are you choosing to drag it?